looking at the back of seating. What's the deal?
This right here, Melissa and Andy, spoke to Craig going today about getting other zoners here.
What did he say?
So he's working on it. Mr. Scott, did Craig reach out to you about any potential zoning board members or no?
Yeah, he told me he had one.
Okay. Not today though.
This is, I think, the day after our last meeting.
Okay.
And I reminded him again.
Yeah,
I passed in a parking lot like 2 weeks ago.
I texted him today, he said he was gonna reach out to you with a name or something like that.
Yeah, I can't do anything with it though.
Well, they gotta be sworn in by a judge and all that.
Oh,
stuff,
really?
right?
First, they gotta be appointed by council,
Right, yeah,
like publicly appointed.
yes.
This is something that that's how it was. I thought maybe.
But Fred's gone.
Say nothing, but it could be. At the end of the decision,
Right.
just sign off. It's not the opinion, but
Right.
it needs a legal requirement of 24 hours. Each president is coming from my office.
Right.
But this way someone walks out with. So anything, I think it's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea, I think it's a good idea.
I went up by Tom Scott, the other good idea man.
I left the house with him.
And Charles Etter, you saw my email there. You saw my email there.
Yes, absolutely.
We agreed on that.
Yes.
He says, okay, as long as it's without prejudice. What's that mean? We're not gonna hold it against you, repaying fees. Alright, so he's out. Withdrawn. I don't think the packet they sent me never made it to my office.
Really?
Yeah, they were, they had a tracking number, but never got to one.
I'm surprised it's somebody turnout considering the two different houses in, Indoor on there.
Last time.
And that was King Shelter,
I don't think we can, I don't think we can,
I'm looking at. Bishop.
we did, we got the,
Here,
we got the,
10 houses on one side.
we got the.
Probably gonna have to come here too.
excuse yourself.
Yep.
Oh, cool, it's got.
Yeah. wheelhouse?
It is not. I mean, I can type really fast, but it's backwards. One hand's faster than the other, so it won't let me.
So I had to give a presentation at Bristol Township for
Oh, yeah?
and I go to put the mask on, right? And so the lectern was over here. I put the mask on, it's the lectern. It's like,
Yeah.
I had a panic. I almost had a panic attack.
Anxiety.
Hey, but if you're not breathing right, once you start not to breathe right, it's over. Oh, you want Cindy?
I don't have a number.
I didn't have one either.
I know it's continued for like month after month after month. I couldn't.
No, he's not gonna be here again.
He's not here again. Okay.
No, we told him not to do this.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm gonna see him.
Okay.
Refile and pay the fee. What do you
Right.
What do you,
Right.
how many bites do you have?
Like 8
Like
or
eight.
9, right?
You're right. Been like over a year.
And listen, or, Cindy's number.
Tom Scott's favorite guy.
Who's that?
Better.
I just said
Mr. Elliott? I have great faith in Ed Murphy, though.
So.
I mean, it's a straight shooter.
Is Ed Murphy gonna buy his properties?
What?
Is Ed Murphy gonna buy the properties? 'Cause that's- I guarantee she'll pay off.
we have a minute. Can I rinse my car and get a different mask?
Sure
You
can.
okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't normally buy fabric masks, but they're a lot hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
You gotta have some kind of mask so you can function. There she is. Your phone's ringing, it's us.
So I'm smiling already.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient.
Patience with the cool. I raised 3 daughters. A lot of patience.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
All right, we'll get started in a few minutes.
We're ready, actually.
As soon as,
Cindy, gives us
Cindy's
the green
ready.
light that our chip's working.
oh, don't say that again.
Oh, we're good. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Bristol Township Zoning Hearing Board. I'd like to get started. Can we all rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, introduce you to a few people. Sitting here to my left is our solicitor, Ken Fetterman. We also got Director of L&I, Tom Scott, our stenographer, Cindy Oliveira, and the board is Andy Garillo and Melissa Regney. All right, so we got a little bit of business to take care of before we get started. So we are looking to get a motion for Charles J. Etter Jr., 2770 Langhorne Yardley Road. I need a motion to accept or deny continuance.
They withdrew it.
Oh, they withdrew it.
Right.
Okay.
It's a motion to accept this withdrawal and
Okay.
refile.
Okay, motion to accept withdrawal and to refile.
I'll second that.
I'll call the board. Andy Grillo.
Yes.
Melissa Regney.
Yes.
Jim McMahon, yes. Okay, so we get started on the agenda. Next up is Thomas and Kelly Lavish. It's 465 Stanford Road, Fairless Hills, PA. Come on up, please.
We had their mail-ins last time, so they're fine.
Yes, this is a continuance from last month.
Before you start, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Thank you.
Okay, you can submit that to Mr. Scott, and thank you. Okay, you guys ready? Whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation, please.
Okay, can you just make sure the microphone's on green and pull it towards you and speak into it? Right on down.
Okay. So we're here to see if we can get more concrete around the in-ground pool that we are supposed to be getting in, and we're given 3 feet allowance around, and we were here last month and we went probably too much beyond what we should have had. So we did knock it back, the engineer did knock it back. So that's what we're here to see if we can get that approved.
So if I understand the plan right, you would be increasing the impervious to a total in the aggregate of 44.1%.
Yeah, before it was like 48, I think,
It was,
49.
yeah, it was 48% before.
I thought it was more.
No, it was definitely 48 last time.
I have a question. Are we looking at a plan 8/5/20? Is that the date of the plan? No.
Well, yeah,
Did you
actually,
give her the wrong one?
it's a revised. You're right, it's still dated 8/5, it's just revised. Here is the,
The revision. Thank you.
that's right.
Thank you very much. So the revision takes it to 44.19, right?
If that's,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, that's the only variance you're seeking.
yes.
So, anybody have any questions? So you didn't You didn't submit it to an engineer at all?
Yeah, the engineer's the one that,
That revised it for us, yes.
Mesco is an engineer.
we worked with the pool company and the engineer.
That's Mesco Engineering, that's the engineering company.
And that's what they came out with, 44. Mr. Scott, anything to add? All right, so, anybody from the audience like to speak for or against this project? All right, I need a motion to accept or deny this application.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
I'll call the board. Melissa Rigney,
Yes.
Andy Guerrillo,
Yes.
Jim McMahon, no.
But you're approved. You're approved.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next on the agenda is Lavender Builders LLC, 1060 Big Oak Road, Langhorne, PA. Anybody in the audience from Lavender Builders LLC?
I think he's outside.
Going once? Going twice?
They're in the lobby.
Spread out, couple on the table, couple back there.
Take all the time you need,
I don't think we got the proofs of mailings last time. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks for reminding me.
Of course. Okay, we can proceed.
All right, whenever you're ready to start your presentation, you may begin.
I do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. Good evening. Bryce McGuigan of Begley Carlin here on behalf of the applicants, Lavender Builders. We're here today for the property at issue, which is, the address is Avenue C, Newportville, Pennsylvania, 19056, tax map parcel number 5-16-77. The property is zoned R1 residential and is presently unimproved vacant woodlands. It's about 28,000 square feet, which is right around 0.65 to 0.7 acres. What we're proposing here tonight is the construction of 2 single-family detached dwellings, which is a permitted use in the R1 district. These dwellings, these lots, will both be well in excess of the minimum lot area of the district. There will also be no issues with impervious surface or generally any other dimensional variances. We are, however, requesting 3 variances related to the woodlands that are located on the property. The first variance we are requesting is to allow woodland alteration of 89.6% rather than the permitted 50%, which is woodland alteration, which is the term within the ordinance, I may add. I just want to clarify before our presentation formally begins that we are not proposing we're going to cut down 89.6% of the trees. In fact, we're only removing 13 trees on the lot, plus an additional few trees that would be presently on the paper street as well. The township code has a broad definition of what alteration means, and we have Vince Fioravanti here who will explain that in detail exactly what our plans are. The second variance that we're requesting is to be able to calculate setbacks from the lot lines rather than the protected resources. This variance is critical to us because if we can't get that relief, then we really won't be able to build anything on the property. Lastly, we're seeking a variance from section 205-130C, which is to not require the applicant to provide buffering between our property line together with the industrial use to the side of the property.
I think that's 205-109.
109, I apologize. I could not read I juxtaposed 2 numbers here. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Now, as I'm sure the panel is aware, the general intent of the buffering ordinances similar to this is to protect the residential uses from having to visualize the industrial use to the side of the property. Here we represent the residential parcel. More significantly, however, there are extensive woodlands that are existing along that line, and they will remain there. So the Bristol ordinance actually provides this board the power, the power and the authority. If you find this is acceptable buffering, then we don't need the variance. However, we're requesting that in an abundance of caution. So again, there's no issues with the lot size, pervious surface, or general dimensional restrictions on the lot. All the relief is specific to the woodlands themselves. There are no impact variances, without which we won't be able to reasonably use the property. And tonight I have 2 witnesses I'm going to present regarding these issues. First, I have Eric Conaves, who is one of the owners of Lavender Builders, and I also have Vince Fioravanti, who is our engineer and is well known in the area, obviously. So with that, I would like to first call Eric Conaves to offer testimony. Would it be easier for me to vocalize? And Mr.
You got to use that microphone right there.
Thank you very much. All right, good. That's bright. Good evening, Mr. Conaves.
Good evening.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you spell your name for the record, please?
Eric, last name Kony, V as in Victor, E-S. You're welcome.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Conaves.
Good evening.
What's your role with Lavender Builders?
I'm a co-owner with Mr. George Schaefer.
Okay. And are you the owner of the property located on Avenue C in Newportville?
Yes,
All right. You acquired that in April of this year, is that right?
that's correct.
Now, the property is presently vacant and undeveloped land.
That is correct.
All right. Would you agree that it's covered in woodlands?
Yes,
Now, your plan here today is to construct 2 single-family homes on the property.
that is correct.
And it is your understanding that both properties will be over the minimum lot size of the district.
Yes, they will.
And you're not going to have any impervious surface concerns
No, sir.
or other general dimensional relief related to the size of the properties.
No.
Right. So it's fair to say that the 2 homes would be able to fit on the property, but for the existing woodlands.
Yes.
Now, your engineer here, Mr. Vince Fioravanti, he's developed plans related to the 2 dwellings that will be done to make the dwellings, they'll be done to be able to construct the dwellings given the woodlands. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, the intent is to still have 2 wooded lots, but with detached residential dwellings.
Yes.
Okay. And it's also your understanding that, in fact, we will be removing less than 50% of the trees on the property.
Yes.
Okay. And without the relief we're asking for today, you won't be able to reasonably use your property or to build these residences.
That's correct.
Now, is it fair to say you're familiar with the surrounding community?
Yes.
Right? The surrounding properties, you're aware of those properties?
Yes.
Okay. This use, would you say that it fits with the surrounding community?
Absolutely.
Right. Is there any reason in your eyes why this would be detrimental to the community?
No, not at all. I think it adds.
All right. Would it be detrimental to the industrial uses located right next door?
No, sir.
Now, with that, if the board has any questions for Mr. Conovis, we'll be prepared to answer those.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Yeah, we'll get to you guys as soon as they're done their presentation, and then we'll get to the audience after that. You'll have more than enough time to speak after they're done their presentation. All right? Thank you. No, we're good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Conovis. You can sit
Thank
down.
you.
All right. With that, I would call Mr. Vince Fioravanti.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Fioravanti.
Good evening,
All right. What's your position with Fioravanti, Inc.?
President.
All right. And I'd be happy to go through Mr. Fioravanti's qualifications if the board deems necessary.
It's fine. Do you have a CV of his?
I don't believe I have one on hand, unfortunately. But
Just briefly, get it on the record.
So we started the company in 1990, and we've been doing land development projects of all types and scales in Bucks County and actually in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware. We started at job number 1. We're over 2020 at this point. It's been 20 or 25 years.
and you've testified throughout Bucks County, including here in Bristol Township?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So with that, I would just like to offer Mr. Fioravanti as an expert. Thank you very much. All right. Just as a brief refresher for the board, and actually, why don't we switch microphones here so you can use that's probably a better idea.
Yep.
All right, thanks. So as a brief refresher for the board, can you just cover why we're generally here today?
The reasons we're here?
Yes, sir.
The development of this parcel with the 2 proposed dwellings requires 3 variances related to woodlands. The first that you mentioned was the disturbance of woodland areas of 89.5%, where 50% is the maximum allowable. I'll go into that in a little bit. It's a little misleading when you're just looking at the percentage of woodlands that are disturbed. We have no intention of clearing 89% of the woods. The other relief we're requesting is that the setbacks not be taken from the resources, which in this case are the woodlands. And the third is the buffering between our property and the adjacent zoning boundary. To the east on this property, in this exhibit, as I'm pointing, our property is in the R1, and immediately adjacent is M1, which is industrial zoning, and you can see part of the buildings that exist alongside.
So you've prepared the site plans for this project, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with the Bristol Township ordinances from which we're seeking the variance?
Yes, correct.
All right. Well, let's go through the 3 that you mentioned. Let's start with the woodland alteration variance. Now, as you said, we're requesting 89.6, where only 50 is required. Can you explain that 89.6 number to the board?
Okay, the reason that we had to come before the board to request this relief is the language in the ordinance says that no more than 50% of the woodland area can be disturbed, and by disturbed they mean altered, regraded, compacted, built upon. You basically can't even walk under it, and it counts as disturbance. What we have proposed, you can see the X's on the trees that we're taking out, just in the area where the houses are. The rear lots will remain wooded. There's no proposed grading or contours or activity at all. The only thing we have proposed in the rear of the lots is a small stormwater system with a berm that's about 1.5 to 2 foot high at the bottom of the property. And you can see in red on this exhibit an area where we will pond 6 inches of water, which is called the water quality volume, which is required by the ordinance. Township ordinance requires you to either infiltrate this volume or to pond the volume and filter it before you release it. So we've had our soils testing done. In this area, we prefer to infiltrate it, but in this area, the water table is high, of course. And when you do your soils testing, you can't infiltrate water. You dig a hole, it fills with water. So the other option that DEP requires us to do is filter that volume before we release it. So there's a very small berm at the rear of the property. We're going to capture the required volume by township code. It's filtered and released, and just basically cleaned up before it's released.
Where's it released to?
This tributary here that's shown on the plan, it runs along to the Neshaminy Creek. So it'll be released into the same tributary that it now flows through. So we're not redirecting any water on anyone else's property. And for heavier storms, this area will fill to, about 1 foot deep, 1.5 foot deep. And then it'll spill over this little berm that we create so that it'll spread in all directions like a sheet flow. So there's no concentrated flow, there's no erosion. And I have other exhibits that show we're basically mirroring the flow pattern that exists today. I do have another exhibit that'll illustrate this. I don't know if you can see it from there, but the blue arrows on this exhibit are the pre-development drainage patterns. So water comes across the paper street, across our property, spreads out in all different directions into this tributary to the Neshaminy. Now in the post-development scenario, we have that little basin in the back, and we have a level spreader across the back, which will mimic that same distribution. So we're not concentrating the flows, we're not changing anything. All we're doing is reducing the peak flows, and for the small storms, filtering that water quality volume and releasing it into the same tributary that it flows in now. It goes to the Neshaminy. So that's the only activity that we're proposing in the rear yards. Now, when we were discussing this with the township and their staff and their engineers, we were telling them that we're not clearing the woods back there. I'm building 1.5 foot, 2 foot high berm. The trees are still going to be there. The 6 inch water that we pond for 26 hours, that doesn't count either. But their response was it does count. Because if you pond water for 26 hours, it's just like clearing the woods. And if you build a berm that's 1.5 foot high, that's proposed grading in the woods, so it counts as disturbance. They even said that as we walk back and forth to build it, we're going to be compacting soils, and that's woodlands disturbance. So everything is woodlands disturbance. That's why the number's so high. But we're not really disturbing that much woodlands. It's really only where the houses are, and they're going to have wooded yards, and there really is going to be no impact on the adjoiners.
What are you doing with the trees you're taking out?
Well, the trees we take down, they'll be taken down and stumps ground and removed, but the rest of the site will remain wooded.
And Mr. Fioravanti, just to confirm, we'll be removing on the actual lot themselves, is that 13 trees?
Yes.
Now, you went into great detail about the stormwater management system that we're going to put in there. I just want to confirm, we don't have any impervious surface problems at this lot, right?
Not at all. The lots are compliant. They meet the required minimum size. The first lot is much larger than the required minimum size. And the impervious cover and the building coverage are well within limits.
And the stormwater system, or the stormwater issues at the property, the stormwater situation, in your opinion, would it change at all depending on now existing to post-construction?
No, actually, we're going by the modern codes, and the rest of the area was built a long time ago. So what will happen when we're finished is the stormwater will be reduced to people downstream, and for the very low storms, it'll be filtered. So there'll be no impact. If any, there'll be improvements downstream.
And that tributary is literally right behind the lot, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this variance in terms of the woodland disturbance ratio, will granting that, in your opinion, negatively impact either the adjoining lots or anyone else in the surrounding community?
Not at all.
And again, it is the intention to keep the lots wooded in nature.
Yes, we're going to minimize tree clearing. It's just going to be the trees that are necessary to build 2 houses and 2 driveways.
And if we couldn't get this variance, if this variance is denied, would we be able to do any residential use on this property?
No.
Now, the second variance we're requesting is to allow setbacks to be calculated from the lot lines rather than from the protected resource boundaries. Could you explain that to the panel a bit?
Yes. What this provision requires would be if there are resources on a property, whether it be a lake or wetlands or woodlands, that you're allowed to disturb a certain amount of it. And then if your building setback is, say, 30 feet for a side yard, once you finish with your disturbance and here's your protected area, then they take the building setback from the limit of the resource instead of the property line. So now it's even making it worse. So, you know, if you're allowed to take 50% of the trees down, so you have 50% woodland clearance, then they take the setbacks like that's your property line. So the rest of the woods that you protect is like not even your property anymore. So now you're taking setbacks from there, and there's no land left. If you wanted to do that, you couldn't build anywhere.
So again, with receiving this variance, would we be able to do anything residential with this lot?
No.
Right.
If you do a calculation of, if you built one home, would it result in significantly less disturbance, or are you disturbing most of it anyway?
We'd be disturbing about the same, and I think we would still, if we were to comply with the disturbance of the woodlands and the construction vehicles, counting that as disturbance, we'd still probably not be able to even build a house.
And again, Mr. Fioravanti, I just want to confirm, the variances that we're requesting, do any of them relate specifically to constructing 2 houses instead of, let's say, 1?
No.
No. It's all just because of the wooded nature of the lot.
Yes.
And again, we're not requesting any other variances regarding the actual 2 houses themselves. They fit all the other ordinance requirements dimensionally.
Yes, the lots are oversized. The building coverage is below the minimum. The houses are the same size or smaller than those in the neighborhood. It's just the interpretation of the language in the woodlands disturbance that driving an ATV through the woods is woodlands disturbance because you're compacting the soils.
Sure. Now, the last variance that I want to touch on is the variance regarding the buffering to the neighboring manufacturing sector. Now, does this parcel require buffering?
Yes.
Yes? All right. Now, in terms of, that would be on the eastern edge, is that right?
Yes, where the zoning boundary is.
Okay. So, with regard to that side of the property, would there be any other tree coverage in that area?
It is a wooded area. That entire area is wooded, and the zoning boundary area is wooded. You can see on this exhibit, I've rendered the one back of the manufacturing building, and the others just follow in the same line. And you can see the tributary that's in the yard. This area in the rear of the manufacturing buildings isn't used for anything. There's no improvements back there. It's just woods with the tributary that carries runoff. And there is provisions in the code that if council or the zoning officer determines that existing vegetation is adequate, that a buffer wouldn't be required.
And even with our proposed developments here, would there still be existing vegetation and existing landscaping in that area?
Yes, absolutely. That entire area that's adjacent to our tract is wooded and couldn't be built on.
So is it your opinion that that existing landscaping would provide sufficient buffering for the 2 different districts?
Yes, it's already buffered, and you really can't see anything there anyway.
And we're just asking for this variance essentially in an abundance of caution?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of the project in general, I know you've already discussed the stormwater. Any hydraulic impact as a result of our development?
None whatsoever, and we require to go through land development where the township engineer will review all of the improvements that we propose so that we'd have to comply with all stormwater codes, which in essence require that there'll be no impact to downstream adjoiners.
And if the township engineer advises or suggests any changes, obviously we would be willing to incorporate that and we would readily do so.
Yes, absolutely.
In your opinion, is there any reason why any of the relief we're seeking tonight would be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the community?
None whatsoever. It essentially just comes down to the simple construction and development of 2 single-family dwellings and 2 driveways.
With that, does the board have any questions for Mr. Fioravanti?
Good. Any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Mr. Fioravantes, you've said that you're only taking out 13 trees,
Yes,
and you said that that's specific to the parcels themselves, right?
yes, in the body of the parcels.
Right, but that's a little bit of a mischaracterization, right? Because you have to create a street, and so you're taking out 6 additional trees in the street, correct?
Absolutely, yes. There are trees that have to come down in the road right-of-way to build the driveway, yes.
So you're taking out 19 of the 28 trees that are there,
Well, there's a lot of other trees there that aren't as large.
but they're not rendered they're not shown
Right.
on the drawing at all, any other trees?
Right, yeah, there are trees that are 2 inches and 3 inches, and they're, you can barely walk through them, but they're not shown on the drawings. It's the larger trees that we show.
So in this lot 1, you're going to take out 6 of the 10 trees?
Yes. Well, even now that we have, if we are granted the variance, I can then be more flexible with what I'm proposing in here, and I can probably save those 2 trees in the back. So I can relocate that berm a little bit northward.
And this lot 2 is going to be adjacent to an industrial zone
Yes,
and lose some of the existing buffering that's there for the neighborhood, correct?
well, just where the house is and where the trees are taken out. But in the rear, all those trees will remain.
Thank you.
Has the stormwater management that you guys are proposing already been approved by the township, or?
No, we aren't allowed to move forward with the township land development until we have acquired the zoning variances. We did attempt to go through, that we would resolve it, but they said us that we had to go through the zoning board first.
So any variance the board would grant would be conditioned on
Compliance with all other codes, absolutely.
all code and stormwater management?
Yes, and we did meet with them to review the proposal.
Are these houses in a floodplain?
No.
Mr. Scott, anything to add?
Mr. Fioravanti, the plan has in the key shows limited disturbance. Could you point to it on that plan, please?
I'm not sure if this rendered exhibit has a limit of disturbance.
Because, I mean, that's the big line.
Oh,
right? You're saying on
limit
this
of
side
the
line is
woodlands. Yeah, the limit of the woodlands disturbance, yes, it's this heavy line here. I thought you meant like erosion control disturbance. Yeah, this is the limit of the woodlands disturbance. You can see it.
the one that goes all the way around the property with the exception of the little part that sticks out towards the side area.
Yes, yes.
All right, so the disturbance is going to be basically everywhere except for that side portion of the property?
Yeah, so we were advised that even the traffic back and forth to build the basin in the back is disturbance, so.
All right, so let's say this gets approved, you build these houses, 2 years from now, whoever lives on lot 1 wants to come in and put in a swimming pool in the backyard. Let's say it's right next to that tree in the back, right in the middle. Would that be putting the pool in the area of disturbance?
I think if someone were to come back, we're not proposing anything like that, but if an owner wanted to come back later with a pool, I guess we'd have to go through the township and see whatever codes or if there's tree removal requirements for that.
Well, I mean, in your opinion, forget permits, I'm talking about the zone, would they need additional relief from the woodland cap? That you're going from 100%, right, am I saying that right, 50% to 89?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so now if they're gonna put in a swimming pool, based on the discussions you've had with the township engineer, in their opinion, that would require additional relief?
I'm not sure if, I don't know if that's a lifetime cap or whether that applies to the building of the development. Then you sell it to an owner, and 10 years later, they want to put a pool in. I don't know whether, I would think they would have to start over with their project and then see what, it would count as disturbance, everything counts as disturbance. But, they would probably have to get a permit for it, and then they would reevaluate it at that time. I would think that this variance applies to this project when it's finished. Like I said, 10 years later, a guy wants to put a pool in, he probably has to start from scratch, I would assume.
Well, I don't know if this is the proper venue, Mr. McMahon. I don't want to waste the board's time, but if we, that's something that would need to be, I think, clarified and probably recorded on the plan for whoever's going to buy these properties, thinking, or, you know, they're going to leave, they're going to buy the house from Lavender, and a year later, they're going to want to put up a fence or a shed to put in their bicycles or whatever, and then they realize they're out of luck. Additionally, and this might be something else that is more properly addressed at the land development application, is what is the ownership proposal for the driveway that is now in the area that is the paper street labeled as Avenue B?
Okay, it was our intention that that driveway would be a common driveway with a maintenance agreement between the two lots. So just like a common driveway would be on a typical situation where you have two lots sharing a driveway, it would be the same thing, just as happens to be in a paper street.
But I mean, are we talking about, is there any ownership to that portion of Avenue B that comes with these proposed lots, or is it, what is it?
Well, that's one thing. I know the attorneys were going to work out the status of the paper street and how they were going to, you know, maintain and classify this driveway. But right now, I would think that the paper street belongs to the township, just like the status of the other paper streets in the area, that these two lot owners build this driveway and they maintain it with their own private agreement. We
Well,
also have water and
if
sewer.
it's owned by the township, it's a right-of-way, why are you not developing the street in its entirety to extend it down past that lot number 2?
It really can't, you would have to go, if you were to apply the codes, there's one of the waivers, more of a land development question, but one of the waivers that we did get a review from the township engineer on this, and it was one of the waivers. That Avenue B dead ends into the properties that extend along that boundary. So it can't be extended any further. And to make it comply, it would have street trees and light poles and a cul-de-sac with a 60-foot turnaround. It just wouldn't fit. You know, I don't know why it was cut off back in the day, but you could never make it comply with the appropriate turnaround. So it was a waiver we were requesting to treat it as a common driveway. And then it was tabled. The attorneys were going to work something out, but we had to get the Woodlands issue resolved first.
All right, and again, Mr. McMahon, this might be something for land development rather than here, but that is going to have to be, because you can't, if you're saying this is a public right-of-way in Avenue B, and you want to put in a common driveway that is owned by the two property owners, again, in 2-3 years, the houses are built, developer's gone, and then it snows, if it ever snows again, and they're wondering why township's not down there plowing that street-looking thing, and it's a driveway.
Yeah,
We're going to need to have the.
It'd have to be-
I'm sorry. I don't want to belabor the point. I think this is probably something. I mean, I would ask the board if you decide to grant the variance that as I think was already mentioned, Mr. McGuigan or Mr. Fioravanti, that the requirement for making sure this follow-through on the other matters is addressed as part of the decision, so that if it's not done, the variance expires. Because there's as you can see by looking at this, you guys have looked at enough plans, there's a lot to wonder about on this plan, quite frankly. I know this isn't the venue for it, but we're all here, I thought I'd bring it up, thank you.
And to briefly address that, the township has, we have spoken with the township regarding the issue with Avenue B, and obviously we would be more than willing to condition any potential approval on those further conversations and on receiving township approval for whichever way we end up doing that. Similarly, if there's issues regarding potential future disturbances, we would be willing to sign any agreement or to have any sort of restrictions within the deed that the township requires.
And I would think the lots are also limited by the building coverage and the impervious cover. So then in the future, if the owner of Lot 1 wanted to put a tennis court in, that he would then be over the impervious cover. He would have to come back here and wouldn't be allowed to do it anyway. So I think the protections of building coverage and impervious cover would still apply to these lots, of course, no matter what we do. So if somebody wants to come in and start putting in improvements in the yards, they're going to have to comply with all the impervious cover anyway. So there are breaks and limits on that stuff.
But you agree, as a condition, that if the variance were granted, it would be for what you're building here and for nothing else?
Yes.
That any other building on the lot would have to, as you say, start from the beginning in terms of,
Yes, when we're talking about the wood,
Yeah, yes, we would agree to that condition.
And you can see how, though, that, you know, the people who buy the house would be hit right between the eyes when they come into the L&I office and start asking for permits. We pull out the plan, we say, I'm sorry, that shed, you got plenty of room to put it, you meet the impervious surface requirements, you meet the building coverage requirements, you meet the setbacks, but you're part of the woodland disturbed area, and you're gonna have to go back to the zoning hearing board to do it. And I'm not saying that's not right, wrong, or different. My point is that it needs to be made extremely clear on a document that gets recorded on the plan and in the deeds themselves that that's a reality. Thank you.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. You want to make it easy for anybody buying a lot to understand what the restrictions are when they buy
Yes.
it, so they don't.
and that would be similar to anybody with a wooded lot in the township. It's going to have that same situation.
But we would be more than happy to comply with that condition, yes.
I have some other questions.
Go ahead, Melissa.
So, Mr. Fioravanti, you testified that if you were to just build one rather than two, that it wouldn't really make a difference because you still have woodlands disturbance, you still have buffer. Hang on, sorry, I'm just not talking at it. But just a plain look at the plan, if you were to put a house smack in the middle of those two proposed lots, it looks pretty obvious that there's a lot less trees that would need to be removed. And a lot, so the percentage of disturbance would be decreased. The percentage of actual real disturbance, and I understand, fully understand the definition of just walking on it disturbs it, but it's not walking on it's not a permanent disturbance. And so just a plain look at the plan would show that if you just put one in the middle, there'd be a lot less trees. You wouldn't have trees to take down for two different driveways. Maybe that proposed shared driveway would be shortened a bit, and so therefore some other trees might be saved. You might have some different calculations with regard to the runoff, et cetera. So can you still testify that you truly believe that if it were just one property, but one house, one dwelling being developed, that you'd still be before us for the same relief?
I think that's possible because really of the interpretation that we were given with the language. I mean, you'd have one house, you'd be taking down less trees. You'd be, anytime you build a stormwater system, it's going to cause disturbance. When I have to pond the water, it's going to be a disturbance. My construction activity back and forth is going to be a disturbance. I'm going to have to take the setbacks from the woodlands that I clear, and they're going to come back in and squeeze the lot. Just the way the language is written, everything is a disturbance. And then whatever's left over, you got their setbacks from that disturbance area. It's just so difficult to do anything. I mean, the ordinance was written to protect the trees, but to the point where if you take it literally, like I said, you can't even walk in the woods.
But it would be less.
It would be
asking
less,
for
yes.
less.
Oh, yeah, it would be less.
And-
But probably
and-
when I add up all those compactions and traffic, which is what would happen to us, you'd still be here.
Maybe
Got it.
more of a qualitative issue than a quantitative issue
Yeah.
in terms of disturbance. I think that's really what you're doing.
But even in the end, when you look at when the dust settles on the project, the lots are full size, the houses are smaller than the houses that are next to it. Building coverage, impervious cover is below the limits. There'll be two houses with two driveways on wooded lots.
And this property was never developed before. This is fresh. This is existing woodlands,
Correct.
right? These trees are, how do we know how old?
I do not know.
I don't know either.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other witnesses?
We do not have any other witnesses.
All right. Yeah, we'll get to you, sir. All right. So stick around. We might have questions for you to answer. So, okay. So this is the time that we bring up people from the audience for or against the project. So when you come up, please state your name and your address for the record. And please, no derogatory remarks towards anybody, please. This is not what we're here for. So, anybody for or against this project that would like to come up and speak, please do so. You just let him sit down, and he can sit down and get the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no need for him to.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'm gonna swear you in, okay?
Huh?
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
Right.
you God?
Help
Can
me
you
God.
state your name and spell it for the record and your address?
My name is John McClay. You got it?
M-C-C-L-A-I-N?
No. John, John, M-C-C-L-A-Y,
Thank you. Your address,
2740 Avenue B.
thank you.
Now, I talked to Tina Davis. She said they cannot build on your driveway, cut on your driveway, coming out the,
They're not doing your driveway, John, anymore.
they're not doing my driveway? What are they doing?
They're going to Avenue B. Like the original paperwork says they have to.
Oh, they're not coming to my house?
Come on, bring this so you can see it.
What's that? What are they doing?
This is your house.
Right,
These are two they want to build. This is Avenue B,
right.
okay? So they're not going to affect your stuff. This is your driveway here.
Oh, they're not coming to my driveway?
No, they're not going to cut across your land anymore.
We're just building onto Avenue B.
You guys got to speak into the microphone, please.
Number 13, okay? Right
Ma'am?
across there.
What do you mean? They can make a turn.
Doesn't have anything to do with your land.
Nothing but my land? Okay. All right. Now, how about the trees that fell on my property? Knocked my porch down, it shook my house up and all. I spent a fortune to get new drains put in my house, sump pumps. I spent a lot of things in there.
Where did it fall from, John? Here or over here?
What are you coming in here from?
Hold on, you can't just,
One at a time.
one at a time, please. I know, I understand, I really do, but
They're not coming out where the lights at, right? They're not coming out where my lights at.
I don't think they're going to take your light pole out. This is your driveway here.
Right,
Avenue B,
right,
okay? This is what it stated on the original plans that they have to do because they're not Griselles.
right. But
okay?
they're not coming on,
This is your driveway.
right, they're not coming in that way.
You have to determine where your light pole is. I don't know where it is.
The light pole's over here somewhere.
Yeah, we
I don't think they're having it.
we don't plan on doing anything with your light pole or your property, sir.
Oh, you don't have nothing to do with it?
Correct.
Okay.
Were your questions answered?
Mr. McClay, were your questions answered, sir?
Yeah.
All right.
They're coming to my property.
Okay,
Are
so,
they gonna fix that?
so you,
Are they gonna fix that, my porch and all, isn't they knocked out with the trees, their trees?
oh, I don't know if they owned the property at the time when the tree fell on your property, sir.
They did. Who else knocked the trees down? They did. And the guy come down with that thing, what do you call that, backup thing where they was,
Right.
yeah, he kept knocking everything down, and the tree fell right down.
They bought the property in April of this year.
And it shook my whole house up, it did.
When did that happen?
Huh?
When did that happen? What year?
This year.
Okay, do you remember the month?
I don't know in a month, but it was earlier. Early in the month. Not now, earlier.
All right.
Earlier.
It was when, after they did the perk test.
Yeah, whatever that thing was coming.
All right, can we address this tree thing, please? The fallen tree? Does anybody have any idea what's going on with this fallen tree?
If I may, I think Mr. Conoves can.
Yes, when we were on site initially, there was a tree already fallen down from a storm that went across the driveway. It had hit his deck. It was on the property line. The perk test that we did were in about 50 foot where there were saplings. We never knocked any trees over. We didn't do anything near there, but we did see it from a storm.
Was it?
No, it wasn't from a storm.
Hold on, sir. Sir, hold on. Hold on. Mr. McClay, hold on, please. Please. Were you guys the owners of the property at the time when this tree fell? Or you?
Yeah, I believe we were.
So then it's your tree. Am I correct? Or no?
I mean, I have to check the date, honestly,
Okay.
because we had looked at the property many times
All right.
and walked the property many times. But
So, all right.
I'll put it to you this way, we never heard anything about this until right now.
Is it?
You weren't asked to repair anything or?
No, never.
No, because they never came look around or anything. It's fair is fair.
Mr. McClay, at this point, this really has no bearing on what we do here. I mean, honestly. So, I would speak to your homeowners, or I would guess that's basically what I.
Well, Tina Davis, he said they're responsible for doing that, when that tree came down. They came down with that thing and hit that tree came back down, hit my property, they're supposed to fix it.
Right. Like I said, I do understand, but right now, this is not what we're here for. You got to take that up with you're the homeowners or the owners of that property. And if I was the owner of the property in question, I would be speaking to you after this meeting about it. That's just me, but that's my personal opinion. So, but right now, we're taking care of the zoning ordinances. So,
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McClay, I would be more than happy to speak with you about this once we're done here today. So if you don't mind waiting, I'll be more than happy to talk with you.
thank you. Okay. Anybody else from the audience who'd like to come up and speak, please? Please state your name and address for the record.
Kissizzy, 3916 Newman Street, Cassizzi. Joanne, Joann. 3916 Newman, Newman.
solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
So help me God, yeah, I do. It's not gonna be the entire truth because we don't have time enough for it. I'm giving it to you in a nutshell. Okay, it doesn't have everything to do with them. It's on, I'm sorry. It doesn't have everything to do with them, just the property itself and the water problems that it has caused all of us. Marges are especially nice. Since time is short, I will keep the following short and put it all in a nutshell, as I don't think you would believe what this property has meant to me. Back in 1988, when John's house was built, he did not build it. There's been nothing but water problems for all of us. They don't necessarily have to border that property. We've been affected by it. I think the removal of 89% of the trees is ridiculous. Anyway, during the construction of his house, my husband and myself came home after work one day to a trench dug across our property. Was under the impression that our survey markers were hers. She still is. Let's see, She had the property graded in such a manner that all of the water problems that were hers and her mother's were now ours. The L&I Department of Bristol Township would not remedy this situation in any way. Must be nice to have relatives in L&I. What they did give us was 2 drains, one above John's house, right about there. Oh, that's it, right there. And one down here. It's filled completely with dirt, both of them. They're useless. They don't affect any of the rainwater. They don't. Our garage is flooded every time it rains. It doesn't have to be a lot of rain. Every time it rains, our garage is flooded. We've tried to put this water down the street, the alleyway, the alleyway where it belongs. Sometimes it works, most of the times it doesn't. Our land is soggy and wet. Kyle and Leanne's is soggy and wet, right along the fence line where they want to put their water drainage thing. Okay, that's their fence line. Isn't that a mosquito nightmare? Like I said, Marge has some really interesting issues with her land. So Township, L&I Department, and Majors Engineering, I don't know if they still work in this township. I don't know. What a disgrace. They let this rainwater route stay the way it turned into. Kyle and Leanne have a lot of water problems. It runs right down their basement, affects their heating system every time it rains. Let's take out 89% of the trees that help suck up some of that water. Marge's property gets raw sewage in the basement. Let's take out 89% of the trees on that property. Since then, we've lost about 40 ash trees. All of Bucks County lost their ash trees to those beetles. Well, we lost about 40. That affects the water. How many has that land lost? I don't know. How old are those trees that they want to take down? We've been living here almost 40 years, just my husband and myself. Those trees have been there longer than that. They're just counting. What size trees are they counting? What size trees are they not counting? You have the thing. They're going to take down way more than 13 trees. And I'm not talking about saplings. I don't want to stop anybody from building on their land. I don't. Do it right. Let's do it right. They wanted to build 2 houses on that lot. How greedy can you be? They got that land for a song. And that's fine. Good businessmen, I guess. Mary just wanted to dump it anyway. Tax liability. All those trees are going to add to our water problems. All of them. Every one of them. That streamlet that they have between that property and the industrial park, it doesn't exist anymore. It used to dump into a pond below their property. That doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist. There used to be all kinds of wildlife in that little pond. Doesn't exist. Will we be able to leave here tonight with any possible help with any of this? I wonder. P.S. Why has Lavender Building been reluctant to talk to any of us? Instead, they trespassed, hacked away at our bushes and stuff with their machetes. My property, like they had a right to do so. They thought they did, but they didn't check. They didn't check. How irresponsible is that? When confronted about, you said not to get nasty, but I don't particularly like being called a loudmouth bitch. I really don't. They really tried to run their backhoe across my land again. They were confronted, and that's when we were called those nice names. My daughter, and Leanne. We were home at the time. My point is, they have no regard for any of us. None. They could care less. Totally care less. They have a lawyer. They have an engineer. Ooh. We're the residents here. We pay taxes here. They don't. They don't pay taxes in Bristol Township. They don't live here, and they won't live here. We do. This property is required to do the Avenue B thing. I'm glad to see it on there because it wasn't before. They actually thought they were going to run across my land for that, to access that property. I'm glad to see that's changed. I really am. The other issues are too numerous to mention. I thought you had to be 100 yards away from an industrial park. What happened to that? 100 yards. Hello? So when they did their thing, they sell this property, the poor boobs that buy those houses are left with, they can't even put a shed up. It's amazing, 89%. 89%. It's amazing. And their water retention, right on the edge of their fence. God bless.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, please.
Hi. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Can you state your name for the record and spell it, please?
Leanne Pelkey, Leannepelke.
E-E-L-K-E?
Yes. 2737 C Avenue. Okay, so similar concerns to the ones that were just stated. One being where the drainage will go is right up against our property, so that's a concern because it will be a breeding ground for mosquitoes, and we do have a lot of moisture already around our property and on our property, so that is a concern. We are also concerned with the fact that there is going to be no buffering between these homes and our property, because we obviously bought the house for all the beautiful trees and privacy, and now that's not going to be there. That's our concern as well. Also, you know, if this were to be approved, how long is this really going to take to build 2 houses right behind our house? I mean, it's going to be a lot of machines coming in and out constantly behind our home. There's going to be a lot of traffic now on Sunset, which is a really tiny street to begin with. And there's going to be now 2 homes that are going to be accessed from that same street. So that's a concern as well. We're unsure of where the drainage will go, if they put driveways in. Will there be hydrants moved? Will there be power lines moved? Like, will these things affect those things around our home? And I think that's all the questions and concerns I have, aside from what Joanne's already stated. So, that is all. Thank you.
Anybody can speak of her concerns?
I would actually. Miss Pelkey, thank you very much for being here tonight. I just wanted to make sure I understand here. Is this your property down here below?
Yeah.
Well, what Mr. Conoverous was saying is what we could do is we could add evergreen trees to that property line, which might help some of these issues or potentially head off some of these issues that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that would be around the property line bordering your property. And we would condition, here, Vince, can you help me here? I don't want to screw this up again.
I can just turn it.
Oh, even, I could have done that, I apologize. All right, so, Ms. Pelkey, if you can come around here, please. Mm-hmm. All right, so you live right here, correct?
Yes.
All right, what we could do is we would put evergreen trees along the property edge, and we would be more than happy to condition any potential approval we receive tonight on that.
How big are these trees going to be when they're going in? Like, they're little trees. and then they
Well,
eventually
typically-
become big trees.
Yeah, if you're planting evergreens, typically you would put them like, say, 6 to 8 feet tall.
Okay.
And you could space them, and they grow quickly.
Okay,
So it doesn't take long before they're much taller than we are and would provide a visual buffer.
okay. So what about,
The retention pond
yeah,
concern.
Oh,
because
if-
that's right, I mean, we already have a lot of water.
Right. Well,
And like, it's a literal breeding ground for mosquitoes, and we
Right.
already,
the reason that we're required to do this is to actually reduce the water coming to your property, because now, for most of the frequent storms, the water will be stopped, it'll be filtered, and it's gonna come out, filtered through a berm, and then coming out with a pipe that's, very small, so it's supposed to reduce the flow that is already coming to your property. And this is required by law to actually reduce flow on downstream adjoiners. So this should make your situation a little better. And then if we do the buffering, that should take care of any visual.
So it's not gonna, water's not gonna stay in it, it's gonna drain
No,
out.
it's not gonna stay here. It's gonna
How
be
long-
filtered through
Right, how long will the water stay in there?
26 hours. So you'll have a storm, and then water's filtering out, and they require it to be between 24 and 72 hours. So they actually require you to hold it, so if there's any mud or particles, they settle out. So clean water would be released, very controlled. And then for the heavier storms, the peak rates will be reduced by this dam that we're producing. And that's required by law to protect you on the downstream side.
but will this also help with the issues that we're all having with water even now? Or will it add to the problem?
No, it really will. I mean, it's not a big enough property to solve downstream issues, but it'll make downstream issues a little better. And that's what all the analysis, when we go to file this, the township engineers are gonna review this at a very detailed level to make sure that all the water that leaves our property is less than it is now. And that's the requirements of the law, and they're all gonna review it. And that's why we ended up with a storm system to reduce the flows that go into the neighborhood once they pass our property.
Got it.
So, and we have no choice, that's a law.
Yeah.
So, and then the visual buffer, we just, agreed to add that in, and that's not required either, but I think that would alleviate your concern about buffering.
And ultimately, how long would this take, estimated?
Oh, for approval?
For, if you got approval, for construction?
How long would it take you to build a house?
We would do this simultaneously, less than 3 months.
To clear everything out and to build 2 houses?
If you're
Less
doing
than
them at the
3
same
months.
time. Yeah, they're not big, enormous houses or anything. They could take care of them pretty quickly.
There is noise ordinances in Bristol Township too, so if they're there on a
Those?
Sunday or a Saturday and it's too early, they're not supposed to be there. So, I mean,
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Put some on my stuff too. Good, that's what I would've kept.
all right, anybody else? All right,
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
one more,
City
please.
water, you got some on my side, 'cause a lot of water comes down on my side. I'd have
Okay.
bought some pump, all kinds of things for it. You could in my house.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I think the flooding is, it is what it is. I mean, I don't believe it's not on a floodplain down there, to be honest with you, but
What do you mean it ain't floodplain?
that's what I was
Goes
just,
down this way.
I know.
I'd
I'm
put
just
a new
saying.
driveway in there, 'cause the water kept coming in.
I think it's more of an, just, I don't know.
Going this way.
Right.
So they flowed it down, it's flowing up this way.
Yeah,
Like
but,
a new driveway to put in there.
yeah, they haven't done anything to the property yet. So the flooding is not, that you're getting is not from their property, because they didn't do anything to it yet.
I'm saying when he's going to put like bushes, they had put on my side, so the water could suck out all that water. I don't wanna walk out of the house and fall down and break my neck.
Well,
you know what I mean?
council's gonna talk to you after the meeting about the council, the lawyers for the Lavender Builders. All right, ma'am, go ahead, state your name, address for the record, please.
Marge Augustin.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
You state your name and spell it, please.
Jim,
Marge Augustin.
he's gonna talk to me.
Okay, there we go. A little bit better. Okay, my concern is, I'm looking at two new houses being built there. Where are they gonna tie in to the sewer? Because I have had 3 raw sewage impacts in my basement that the township has taken care of twice. My husband and I took care of once. So I want to know what 2 more houses are going to do. Where are they going to have a new sewer? Is it going to tie in on Avenue C, or is it going to go on Avenue B? And then for the storm drains that come down Newman, well, they don't really work. They come into my yard, and we call it our white rapids. We could put a little boat in our yard sometimes. So my concern is, I'm not saying to not beautify the neighborhood, that's okay. But things have to be done to accommodate for people that are already there and having problems that have not been resolved over the years. So, and then they're talking about a pond. How will that impact, as far as I realize they're saying it can only be there so many hours, but what about mosquito control going forward? And, you know, as far as the drainage, which along here, okay, used to flow down and behind my neighbor at 2730 and behind our house. Something happened to that, and the neighbor in the back of us on Avenue D filled in that drainage ditch. That makes it worse. So our yard fills from the back and the front.
Ms. Augustine, you said through here. We couldn't see where you were pointing. Could you tell me?
I'm sorry.
Could you tell me what road or what area you were talking about?
Okay. Behind the new properties.
Okay.
Okay. To come down behind, which would be across Avenue C.
Uh-huh. I see. Like past the Pelkey, you're saying it comes down past the Pelkeys and across Avenue C.
That's
there.
right, that's right.
Okay.
And, you know, and now it just flows down, Avenue C and into my yard.
Can you tell me, did you live there before Mr. McClay's property was developed?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We moved there in 1990.
And has it been the same ever since you lived there, or has it gotten worse over time?
Now, it got worse because that little flow creek, somehow or another, which someone had told me years ago, but I don't know if it was true, that it was actually a runoff of Queen Anne Creek. Now, the Queen Anne Creek, you know, the way it runs, and it runs down behind my property, and it went into the property that's between Avenue D, which is a paper street, and Avenue E.
Okay.
That used to have a very defined runoff, like a little creek. The gentleman who owns the property on Avenue D filled that in. So it had no place to go except into my yard.
So you have said that you're concerned about it comes from, you know, D and E toward you, and now you're also concerned it's going to come from B down to C, and that seems to be your concern.
Right, and especially, I mean, you know, I'm asking if there's going to be new sewage, sewage drains.
Okay.
That's a big deal, because the sewage drain is right out front of my house.
Okay.
And it's old, of course. You know, I just had new sewer put in my house, but, you know, we've had problems. So if you add 2 more to this sewage system, I don't know. So like I said, beautify our neighborhood, that's fine. But, you know, we wanted to accommodate everybody.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Ms. Augustine, maybe, Vince, can you maybe address some of her concerns here?
Sure. And your property was located where on this exhibit?
I'm over here. I'm like right here.
Okay.
Yeah, Leanne and Kyle are here. The Lachelle's are here at 2730. I'm at 2726, so. And there's a sewage here, and
Sewer line comes here and then down the street.
Newman,
Right, okay.
straight down Newman.
So I can tell you regarding the sewer,
Where's Avenue D at? Is it down here? Oh, down low.
Yeah.
Okay.
Avenue C is here.
yeah, so the
Here's
sewer
Avenue
comes
B,
down here and then
right.
comes down Newman and then
Right.
continues. So regarding, we can deal with them one at a time. Regarding the wastewater, the sanitary sewer, there's an existing manhole in this
Right.
location. And our proposal is to tie into that terminal manhole with a brand-new sewer and a brand-new manhole to this point here. And then the two homes would tie in with gravity laterals.
And that comes down here and down.
Oh, yeah, well, it ends
Yeah.
up, probably ends
Right
up in
into my
Philadelphia.
house.
Well, I don't know if it goes into your house, but.
I can tell you it did.
But what will happen with this is we have to get approval, planning approval, wastewater approval from the sewer authority, from all the people that convey the wastewater all the way down. And I have to look into my notes as to who, sometimes the wastewater from an area like this goes all the way down to Philadelphia to get treated. So it might go miles and miles and through pump stations and through townships and down to Philadelphia. And we have to get approval from everybody from here all the way to where it's treated. So if there's an issue downstream with the wastewater or the sanitary sewer, that would be for the sewer authority they have to clean the lines and fix any
Which
problems that they have, you know.
I have done that with the township, and they have
Right.
been out.
Right,
But
we have
like
no
I
control
said,
over that. But,
I don't want to add more to.
Well, if this line it is sized to accommodate this, but if they have clogs or broken pipes, that has to be fixed. But
I
the
was
part that
told
we're
they
putting
were
in is.
compromised by roots also.
Yeah, yeah, and they do have to maintain that, and it's a difficult job. But our piece is gonna be brand new, and
Yeah.
it all
Yeah, of
has to be
course.
inspected and approved all the way down, to who's treating it. So if there is a problem downstream, the sewer authority would have to fix that. But it's not something we're causing. If there's
Okay.
if there's a block, whether we're there or not, But our system will be new.
Yes, yours would be new.
And same thing with the water.
But is there a study done to accommodate the runoff of their new sewage to come into the old system?
Yes, there is. They have a connection management plan where when they design the sewers, there's so many homes it's supposed to be
Okay,
for, right? Then they look at the plants and the pump stations and see their capacity and do they have overflows. We have to get an approval from everybody all the way down that can you take another two houses? And everybody studies it and DEP is involved and they have records and they have to approve the two new connections to make sure that they can handle it all the way down. And like I said, if there's a problem or a break in the line, that's like a different kind of problem. But there is a lot of people involved in studying capacity of these lines. So we do have to get everybody's approval.
right.
That's the next step, after we get
Okay.
through here.
Well, I just don't want it to impact us.
It shouldn't. I mean, if there's a line problem that's backing up into your house, that's, whether we're there or not, that's happening. That's just something the sewer authority has to
But as
fix.
far as like with the removal of trees and things like that, with the,
Yeah,
you know,
and we're not really removing,
200,000 leaves,
yeah.
they're-
Yeah, the 89% thing
Yeah.
is misleading. We're gonna take trees out from here to here, and where the road is, but the road never has trees where you put a road. So it's really only the top part of the lot where the houses are. All this is gonna stay wooded. We don't really wanna take trees down just for the driveways and the houses, but everything counts. You walk in the woods and it counts as disturbance. That's why the number's so big, but we're not clearing trees back here. I actually just agreed to plant more along the lines. So it's still gonna be wooded when we're finished. That 89% has everybody excited, but that's not the real number. That's just how
Okay.
you interpret the
Is
code.
this blue line, does this indicate water?
Yeah, that's the existing swale. That
And-
is
and
there
what do
because we
they-
surveyed
What do
it.
they call that? Is there a
It's
name?
it's a swale, it's an unnamed tributary to the Neshaminy. But it is there, we actually surveyed that,
And that's the one that goes down
and that way.
and behind my
Yep.
house.
I don't know what happens to it, if somebody filled it in their yard.
Oh, yeah.
We can't handle that either, but that swale does exist, that's where it ends up going.
Okay.
And so we'll be charged with reducing the runoff from this property compared to what it is now. So if there's issues, there should be a little bit better when we're finished. That's what they're gonna make us do with the stormwater system.
Okay.
Now, where's the driveway coming out?
Our driveways are coming straight off that elbow in the street. We're gonna have one common driveway.
And wait,
that'll feed the houses.
you coming from where?
From here, right from where that elbow is in the street.
Yeah, what's that?
It comes
Avenue
through.
B?
Yes.
Avenue B.
Avenue B, well, my property's there.
Well, your property ends here.
We're not gonna change anything on your property, Mr. McClay.
You're not gonna hit none of my property, gonna take a light pole out of there or nothing?
No.
Not gonna touch it.
You're not have enough room to get out, you can't even drive out of there, how you gonna get out of there?
Well, we're adding to Avenue B, right there.
How you gonna add them or something to my property?
Well, your driveway, actually, this is your driveway here. There's a point in time where your driveway crosses into the paper street. And that's not really your property there, it's the paper street.
It goes when it comes out of there, it hits where that light's at. That's part of my property where the light's at.
I don't know if I have the light shown on
The
this
light there,
plan.
and the other part of where my cancer, that's part of my property. When it goes that way. So my cancer on this side.
Yeah.
You can't get through there. Because guys try to get through there, they hit my damn property.
Well, what I could tell you is, right where this curve happens, we're gonna be extending the roadway, so we're not gonna be on your property. Now, to the extent that your driveway will merge into the road, that we're gonna extend, but we're not going on your property.
Wait, listen to me. When it goes up this way and out that way, right? Now where's it going into Sunset Avenue?
This is Sunset here. So we're not doing anything on Sunset. We're just, if you took Avenue B and just went straight, that's what we're doing. Instead of turning, if you just took Avenue B and just drove into the woods, that's where we're going.
Okay.
It's this way, right?
This is B, yeah, horizontal here. And then Sunset is to the left.
B Street hits Sunset Avenue.
Yeah, it turns left into Sunset.
Coming out my way out.
Well, we're gonna extend B straight into the woods. It'll where the mouth of where your driveway attaches to Avenue B, that's gonna go straight across. Because right where your driveway attaches to the street, that's not your property, that's the road right away.
I know.
So that's where we're gonna extend it.
But you're still hitting Sunset Avenue.
Well, yeah, we're touching the elbow where B.
You're still hitting Sunset Avenue. You're not hitting B Street. Hitting Sunset Avenue.
Well, Sunset and B come together, and right where they come together, we're extending B.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't get food out of that. How are you gonna get food? And the guys tried before that machine they come down with. They had a whole time to make it in there.
Well, when we come, we'll regrade this area so we can get through. So we'll have to do a little earthwork there, but we'll get through there.
I don't know about that. That seems kind of funny to me. But you're still hitting Sunset Avenue. You're still coming out this way. Sunset Avenue this way. B Street's this way.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit, there's Sunset Avenue. You hit right into Sunset Avenue.
Right, it turns up Sunset.
Right, then you make a turn.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
you're still on my property, cutting it out that way.
Well, now you're in the road right away there. That's belongs to the
Same thing,
township.
you contradict yourself. You contradict yourself. Harry said, he contradicts on my property.
Now we're in the road right away.
No, you can't do that. Because I talked to Tina Davis, and he said, Tina said you cannot do that. I talked to Tina Davis, she said you cannot do that.
Okay. Well, they're not, Mr. McClay, they're not going to do anything to your property. They're making the road longer and wider.
Yeah, listen to me.
We've been listening to you, sir.
Right, and you still make a turn.
Okay.
You're heading right into Sunset Avenue. You're not hitting the Bay Street.
Yeah.
Sunset Avenue runs this way,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Runs this way into my property, right?
Right.
The Bay Street's this way, right? It's still running into my property.
No, that's the right of way. That's not your property.
It's not your property. Your property line stops before that. You
Yes.
have access out of it through the right of way. That's not your property though.
Yeah, but he's coming out this way.
He's not touching your property.
And he's going to take a light pole down?
They're not taking the light pole down, sir.
I already said that.
Okay, if he hits my property, he's got to responsible for it. So I don't know about that, because it seems funny, you're hitting right into Sunset, you're hitting right into Sunset Avenue.
Okay, so I think at this point, I'm going to make an executive decision, and we're going to make a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, there are a lot of people here. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Anybody else? Okay. Like I said, I'm going to need a motion from the board for or against this application. Anybody? Don't be shy.
We're obviously against it.
Right.
Fine, yeah, we know,
Two houses.
we know you're against it.
Two houses.
We understand that. All right, so I'll get the ball rolling. I guess that's what we're waiting for here, right? So, with that being said, I'm going to make a motion to deny the application. I need a second. Or I need a motion to accept the application and a second.
I'll make a motion to accept the application.
I need a second to accept the application, or a second to deny the application.
With the stipulation on the, that the homeowners that will be purchasing the properties will know that they cannot do anything else to the property without.
I'm going to second the denial of the application for a list of reasons. Do you want me to list those reasons?
Absolutely.
Okay. Water is a huge issue, I hear that. I hear that water is an existing issue. Any development and disturbance is going to impact that. You have significant disturbance, and I'm saying not even the ordinance definition of disturbance. You're literally developing two properties in what is intended to be protected woodlands in the township, which is why there are so many requirements around them. Next, I think it's a bad development because when the builders are gone, you're going to have two township residents who are going to get bonked over the head when they try to do anything. Now, as an attorney myself, buying a property, I would rely upon not just my own personal knowledge, but title companies, etc. Most people buying properties don't know what they're getting and think that they're buying their family's dream home, to later find out that that is all they get. I think that it sets up our residents for being very displeased with the product that they have wound up with. And it might not be the first set of residents. It'd probably be, 15 years down the line when a different family comes in, has zero idea really what in the world went on and what was agreed to, buys the house, wants to put up a pool for their family, and can't. I also think that testimony I heard today from the residents relating to already existing problems with the sewer lines here, and I know that the applicant would still be required to prove that those sewer lines can handle 2 additional, but I also heard testimony that whatever happens on down that line is not their problem. That's a problem. For those reasons, and because I just feel like this application could have been something different presented today, I'm seconding your motion to deny.
Motion's been, the applicant's been denied. I'm sorry. I'll call the board. Andy Guerrillo. Melissa Rigney.
I'm sorry.
Denial on the application.
Yes, correct.
Jim McMahon, yes.
The application's been denied.
Next time this is addressed, will we be notified, or do we have to see it in the newspaper?
And yet, oh, yeah, another thing, how come you didn't notify anybody?
About what?
About to come here today. They had one in the newspaper.
Their property was posted. And they
Huh?
did.
No, it wasn't.
No,
It
it
was
wasn't.
not posted a
It was
second time.
posted in the last meeting, not this meeting.
Well, they don't have to,
Because they posted my property.
they don't have to repost it.
What do you mean they don't have to repost it? How do we know you're there?
Because if you were here last time.
And they drove back across my property last
Okay. Sir, we're done. You guys won. All right?
Thank you. Wait a minute, this guy wanted to talk to me. You want to talk to me? They were doing this thing.
You can't stand out there. Come back here, Johnson.
You gotta talk, you gotta leave the room.
Yes, please, please.
You've got 2 more cases to go.
Okay, wait, help me up?
Thank you.
Oh, you help me out, Calvin. Little lazy. Yes. Thank you. I gotta be fine.
Have a good night.
Tom, you wanna do the old, what, you know, I mean.
Please.
Pass it around like a newborn baby.
Should've been wiping it down on the refrigerator.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Teasing you.
I mean, you know, this ain't Denny's.
And I'm not here to explain it.
They didn't put it in your hands last time, because all the people showed up.
That's right.
So they knew it was gonna be an issue,
That's right.
and they could have spent time
Absolutely right.
the last month.
Taking
trying to
care of
work
it,
out
sure.
with them, and getting in hearing with that.
They seen the people that were here.
But the other month rolled by and did nothing.
All right.
Wait. I just gotta change my battery.
These people. I can't even just. I just can't. I can't. All right, Cindy, you good? All right. Leo and Patricia Ellison. 2927 Bancroft Avenue, Bristol, PA. Come on up, please.
Raise your right hand, please. I can. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
Yes.
It'll come in the mail next month. When you're done with yours, I'll take this, so I can,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
It's on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, it's on.
Okay, we can proceed. You posted your property also, right?
I did, yes.
All right, Ms. Ellison, go ahead.
My name's Patricia Ellison, Ellison, and my address is 2927 Bancroft Avenue, Bristol. So we're here today. We want to construct a garage in the rear of our property, and we're asking for a variance from the 5-foot setbacks. We're asking for 3 foot rather than 5 foot. That's why we're here. So I did the PowerPoint presentation and I did an aerial view of the property to show where the garage will be. It's kind of hard because the light's right on it, but yeah, so it's, if I'll go over and just point to it. It's right here. You could flip to the next slide if you don't mind. That's a plot plan of the property. Again, the garage, this is the street here. My driveway, the house is here, and the garage will be up in this corner behind the house, behind a fence. We have a fence all the way around, that's 6-foot privacy fence that goes around the property. The garage will be in that back corner. The garage will be 22 feet wide and 24 feet deep.
Okay, so you have no problem with impervious surface then? It's just a setback?
Correct, we do not have any problems with impervious.
All right. So it'll be 3 foot from the back of the fence and 3 foot from the side of the fence?
That's correct.
Any idea how big your backyard is? 75 by 125?
Yeah, I'm
50?
not positive how big just the back portion is.
Okay. All right, just curious, just
Yeah,
curious.
I'm not positive, to be honest, how big it is. I know how big the whole lot is, but I don't know about just back.
What will you be using the garage for?
My husband wants to eventually rebuild a car. We have various other toys that we have. I don't really want to name it on public record what my toys are. And then he also wants to do some woodworking projects and things like that, so. Storage,
No business use or anything like that?
absolutely not, no.
They realize if you put electric in, you gotta get a permit for electric and all that stuff too.
Yep.
I just don't want you guys coming to us later and saying, I didn't know I needed a permit.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We will get one.
What's beside you and then what's behind you?
So behind me and to that side are both houses. There's a house behind me and a house to that side.
And have you spoken with both of those neighbors of yours to tell them?
Yes,
And are they here today?
they are not.
Did they tell you?
Sorry. No, they're part of the,
So they're in there, yeah,
notices, right?
they got notices, they hand signed all of them. Actually, all of my neighbors who I approached, all my neighbors are awesome, so, nobody really cared, to be honest. Nobody said they weren't happy with it.
those two neighbors would be 3103 or 2907 or 29?
2907 Michelle Geyer,
Right.
that's the neighbor on the side.
Okay,
And the neighbor behind me is Glenrose Avenue, and that's Tim Mastromarco.
got it.
Timothy Mastromarco, if I'm saying it right.
I think you are.
Is this going to be a pre-made shed or stick framed?
It's gonna be built, so it's stick framed. It'll be on a concrete pad.
Anything else from the board?
And you're gonna, it's gonna be a steel, I'm looking. The
Yes,
steel roof?
so initially they gave us a price for both steel and to do vinyl siding. We're still kind of up in the air which way we really wanted to go with it, depends on price. I think the way they show it is steel with a steel roof.
Mr. Scott, anything to add to this application? Anybody in the audience for or against this project? Last comments from the board? Mr. Fetterman, anything?
No.
All right, I need a motion to approve or deny this applicant.
I'll make motion to approve.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Call the board. Andy Grillo.
Yes.
Melissa Rigney.
Yes.
Jim McMahon, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you guys. You're up, Mr. Scott. You're up. Yeah. Right there. All right, last but not least, Daniel Ribeiro. Easy Auto Sales, 47040 Masher Street, Philadelphia, PA. Come on up, please.
He's here, Your Honor. Sir. I'm the attorney. I should be on the record. My name is James Valentine for Mr. Daniel Ribeiro. I don't have a card with me.
I'm sorry, say, what's your first
My name is James, James.
Okay.
Valentine.
Valentine, like Valentine's Day without the E. Kind of simple. Okay. So a couple of things. I do have the notices for the adjoining properties. Would you like them forward?
Please bring them up, yep.
Hand them to the solicitor, please.
I have 5 of them because there were 2 adjoining properties on the right side, so I just got them both.
And the property was posted?
Property was posted.
Okay.
I have a PowerPoint presentation, very simple. Just, it will say, it will be final presentation. Yes, we're here requesting a variance to start a new business at the property address known as 3029 Veterans Highway. It's right at the intersection of Ford Road and Veterans Highway. The adjoining properties that are there, and I personally did talk to 4 of the 5 properties, and the reason I have 5 notices is when you're looking north on Veterans Highway, the property that we're looking at sits on the, southwestern side. Right across the street going north on the western side is Beach Hardware, and I talked to Mr. Beach there myself when I got a notice, and we told him that we were hoping to start a used car business to sell used cars there, SUVs and motorcycles, and he was a bit excited, and he was hoping that that would work because and I'll get more into my presentation, I'll explain all of this, but he seemed to like the idea. Looking on the eastern side to the west, southwest, on the southeastern side, there are 2 properties. In my presentation, I called it Advanced Auto, but in reality, it's AutoZone. Same thing, Auto Car Parts. I talked to, I believe his name was Lee Weinstein. He's the manager there. And I told him we were thinking about doing this type of property, and he says, great. He had no problem with it. Now, behind the AutoZone.
Just hold on one
Yes.
second. It's okay for you to describe what the surrounding neighbors are and what they do. As far as you telling us what people said, essentially that's hearsay.
Oh, I understand.
It's unnecessary.
Okay.
I mean, they were noticed, they could have been here if they wanted to be here, but we are interested, I'm sure the board's interested in what's going on surrounding the property.
That is correct. Right. And then,
I don't want you to be testifying, right? You're the attorney.
I understand that, and I didn't mean to go there. I was just trying to say that I did talk to the peoples when I did personal notices for them instead of sending them by certified mail. Next slide, please. So in the overview, what we'll do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the background as we know this property, the use of the property, and the economic impact as we looked at it, the traffic impact, and we also looked at whatever environmental impact a used car sales lot would have in that area, and a conclusion. Slide. The property that we're looking at, 3029 Veterans Highway, has been closed for over 2 years according to the property owner. The last business that we saw that was there was a Minuteman Press, and I believe they moved out, and the property's been basically shut down for those 2 years. When we looked at the property the first time, we thought it was a bit of an eyesore because the property was a bit run down. It was painted white with a sign, and there was trash on the left side looking at the property, and we thought that maybe perceived diminished property value all the way around simply because you have what it looked like to be an abandoned property, although it has a legitimate owner. The other thing is that we looked at is the property is just sitting there, and although you might pick up real estate taxes from the owner, you're missing out on the business revenue taxes that can come into the township if there was an active, thriving business in that location. Slide, please. So the use of the property that we're looking to use is to have a used car sales lot, truck, meaning SUVs, and motorcycle sales. It is very similar to permitted uses allowed in Chapter 20536. For example, we allowed retail stores, and a used car lot is basically we're selling cars, and motorcycles, same as anybody else is doing. I did look that further up the road, there is LNS, and they sell truck cabs, 18-wheeler truck cabs right up the road from there, and they're selling used trucks there. The nice thing about that is it's a very similar property that we're looking to do, but we're not in direct competition with any of the properties. As a matter of fact, it looks like we might be beneficial to some of the properties, especially places like AutoZone, where you buy a used car and you go to the AutoZone to buy some extra parts for your new used car. If you don't mind, if you're browsing and it's lunchtime, Wendy's is across the street, you can eat lunch or have a snack for Wendy's. So we're looking at the idea that slide, please. We're looking at the idea that by having a business there, it would increase, it'll be an increase in the customer volume for surrounding businesses. Of course, since it is a new business and Mr. Rivero is starting it up, there is a potential for local employment because we need to hire people, and no use going to Philly. When we're here, we can just advertise for employment, and I say potential employment based on who's interested in those type of things. And of course, the nice thing about it is if you have an active business, there is a business tax revenue for the township, for lack of a better term. You'll get some tax revenue from the business. Slide, please. We did look at the traffic impact, or we decided to look at traffic because it is a big intersection there, and it's like for business after work hours, it's a bit hectic there. But there is a traffic light there, and there are two entries into the at 3029. There's actually an entry coming southbound on Veterans Highway, and westbound, you can come in, make a left turn into that property. So there are two entrances and exits to that property, which should not affect or hinder any of the traffic during that time of day on those streets. And of course, there is ample parking on the premises. In our zoning board appeal, we put a park plan and a site plan and showed that the parking spaces would be, if you're looking at the building on the east side, there's plenty of parking there, and it's a used car lot, so we have ample parking on the lot itself. Slide, please. When we looked at environmental impact, because it's something that we thought we should look at, basically, as far as we're concerned, we see a minimal impact environmentally because we're not doing any real repairs for cars or the SUVs, And so we're really just using household chemicals, just to clean around. So there are no hazardous materials on the premises. We don't plan to keep any hazardous materials. We don't plan to keep any batteries or anything of that sort. And we've already contracted with waste management, so we already have a scheduled waste management pickup, regular trash and everything else. So, slide please. In conclusion, basically we're looking at an active business in that corner. I think the benefits will outweigh any adverse effects. I believe that the business revenue for the township is always a positive thing. It will remove an eyesore because we'll clean it up and we'll make it an active business, and it'll remove that eyesore from the intersection, which is heavily trafficked. And, every property that we have in the township is a reflection of the township. And I think that we have an increase in consumer volume for the local businesses. And that's our presentation.
Where do you plan on offloading these cars that you get?
We can do it right on the lot off the road.
Okay.
You can come right in on the side, right on Veterans Highway. You see it, there's a very wide area. The trucks can just offload. And on most of the vehicles that you have experience with, I say we, but they've been able to drive them on. They don't have to be towed in like the new cars, you see the new car drive. We don't have that problem.
Okay, so you'll be driving them on a lot. You won't be having a car carrier drop them off? Or
Right, we don't get on the side of, I know what you're saying, side of the road, and no.
Right,
It
yeah.
shouldn't be a problem at
Okay,
all. And if we ever had to do that, we can bring them in from the Ford Road and bring them right in. And then exit right out onto Veterans Highway, so it's off street if it ever happened. And I would think maybe a towed vehicle to that extent, one car.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Fetterman?
I just want to make sure, can we hear something from you, Mr. Ribeiro? Introduce yourself.
Yes.
Right hand, please.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, sir.
State your name for the record, please, and spell it.
Daniel Ribeiro. Daniel, D-A-N-I-L-E-L, Ribeiro, R-I-B-E-I-R-O.
Thank you.
Mr. Ribeiro, your attorney did a really nice job of presenting your application. Did you hear what your attorney said?
Yes, sir.
And is there anything that he said that was inaccurate as far as you're concerned?
No, we agreed with everything already.
And do you adopt his words as your own?
Yes.
Because technically, he could have asked you these questions, or he could have given the
Okay.
I was saying, Mr. Fetterman,
the
in my
speech that he
defense,
did, but-
I was gonna bring him in as a witness, but you
Okay.
got ahead of me. It all comes out in the same way, so it's not a problem.
Okay.
The main thing that I have a lot of accent, that's why.
Okay, well,
we-
don't
we-
worry about that.
Okay.
All right.
Just make it easy to you guys.
Okay, so is there anything you want to add to what your attorney said, or do you pretty much adopt what he said as your own testimony?
We're good. That's it.
Anything you want to add?
No, we're gonna try make that corner looking better and try bring some deals to all township.
So, Mr. Ribeiro, this is your only lot?
Yes, sir.
You don't have any other lots in the city, or?
No, I used to work still in Bristol
Right.
since January in Bristol. Auto lot is right on the.
So you're
intersection with,
branching out and starting your
Road
own?
13.
Okay. All right. You still want to call him as a witness, sir, or you good? Okay. All right.
Mr. Fetterman did my job, appreciate it, thank you.
No problem.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I have some questions. Mr. Rivera, how many vehicles do you think you're going to keep on that lot at one time?
No more than 20, 25 is the max that I had idea there. Because we have to leave some space for that corner, maybe a fire department or something.
Are you going to be doing any on-site repairs of the vehicles that are brought in, or they're going to be just as is, that's it?
Just sit in the cars there and show.
So no repair, no body work, just sales?
Not at all, yes.
And then just to add, if there was any repair, it's minor stuff that's done, right out there. You don't really see any big deals. No engine work. I think I'm talking about.
Like a headlight or?
Torn upholstery, you get a guy to come out, fix the upholstery, that type of deal. Don't want to say that we're not doing any repairs, but it's so minor.
You're not rebuilding engines.
Right, exactly.
Or transmission,
We're not using the building for that at all.
like in my cousin Vinny.
Mr. Scott, I have a question for you, if I may. May I?
Yes, good.
This particular lot in question, does it currently have any restrictions regarding parking spaces or vehicles on the lot at any one time that you know of?
It's a little complicated, and I think it needs to be addressed, quite frankly, something a little better than this drawing, it's my opinion, because the use is not permitted. The use is defined by the zoning ordinance, it's permitted in other districts. And in the zoning ordinance, it also has an off-street parking requirement for used vehicle sales. And you know, I don't necessarily know the. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm sorry. I mean, this lot is it's a commercial lot at the intersection there with two frontages, and you know, it's not a very big commercial lot. I'm sure the printer thought he had enough room there. I don't know how much room a used cars lot needs, and I don't know what the on-site vehicle storage and display would be, because it's just not permitted in that district. There's 2 or 3 up the street. You can go on virtually anywhere in Bristol Township. At some point, without driving too far, you're going to hit a car lot, and none of them are, I shouldn't say none, but a good deal of them aren't in the districts the ordinance says they should be in. And no disrespect to the applicant and his attorney, it is a little different from retail, because
Absolutely.
retail doesn't require virtually the entire property to be used for storage of what is for sale. I don't know if that's helps or not. The 2025 vehicles, it sounds like a lot. This isn't a big property. I'm just listening to it. You know, sounds like a lot. But that's my opinion. I'm not a, you know, I think we need a better plan than the one we got, quite frankly, that would show meets and bounds. This is exactly how big it is. There's a PennDOT right-of-way on each side of the frontage where you're going to be storing vehicles in the right-of-way, you know. And those are the things I think you need to, in order for the board to land at a point where they feel confident in the decision for a use variance, which is a very high threshold.
I agree.
You might need additional information. It's easy for me as zoning officer to say, hey, I can't approve this next case, and then it lands here, and then you guys got to struggle with it.
Well, just in looking at the code, let me just note for the board, I don't think any of the activity that they plan to do in this business is necessarily offensive to the zoning code, because you can have a repair shop, you can have a motel, you can have contracting, you can have a hospital even, trade or commercial school. You could have a commercial school to deal with automobiles and how to sell them. So, I mean, I don't think the activity is offensive to what the code is, but the parking issue probably needs to be addressed. That seems to me to be an issue. So,
one of the things that we can do is, you know, we couldn't agree to do a limit in how much inventory we would have. I mean, to me, that's an easy fix.
well, I think Mr. Scott's point's a good point, meaning maybe what you ought to do is I dare say, ask for an adjournment, and then come back with the lot striped, or some type of presentation where the board can get a better feel that it's gonna be safe and operated safely, and it's not gonna be a big mess of cars all over the place, so that it can be operated safely. That's really, I think, the concern.
But Mr. Scott, for him to stripe that property, he needs some kind of, something from the township, right?
I quite frankly, I don't know if it's striped or not, but I don't know if you need striping for the cars that are for sale.
No, I just meant I didn't mean literally. I meant for presentation purposes to put up on that
Right,
screen.
yes.
Let the board
For
see. how
illustrative
you're
reasons, to see what it looks like, but, and I'm sorry I
gonna-
keep talking over everybody, but to specifically answer the chairman's question, and our experience has been that if you're taking a property, and you're making changes to the parking, the off-street parking in general, if it's a non-residential use, there are things you need to meet with the township engineer and get either a land development approval or a waiver to land development, which is largely the same thing, but waiver, yeah, which is largely the same thing, because it still gets reviewed by the township engineer. But, the idea that whether or not you need to, if they would need further approval to stripe it,
That's right.
I would say I'd have to take a long look at that. But I don't know if they were selling, ficus bushes, well, obviously we know with each bush isn't going to need a parking spot, but with used cars, you are.
You can't have a nursery, you can't have forestry.
Right, but I don't know if off-street parking is the same thing for a use that sells cars as it is for every other retail. You know what I mean? Like, in that case, it becomes storage.
Well, okay, I think, all I want to say.
But you're right, I think we need, I don't want to spend this guy's money for him, but I think we need a plan.
Okay, but all I want to say is the board needs to get comfortable. It's up to them, not me. You brought it up, and other than that aspect, if the board's comfortable making a decision, great. If they're more inclined not to approve because of that issue right now, and you want to come back next month with some type of layout of where you're going to put these cars on the lot. I don't think it's a land development issue at all, but it could be a traffic study issue or some kind of traffic issue.
I think that we can come out and have a guy surveyor come out and just tell us exactly what's the usable space in the land, and then I'm sure there is a size for parking. Just like there's a width for each road. Most parking spaces are 9 feet wide. I know this for a fact. So we can go out there and maybe a virtual map, as Mr. Cotton said, and just put it, and we can put it out and say, this is where we can plan how we're going to park the cars, and this is the number of cars that we could, our maximum inventory, and then show you in the site plan that I did today, the parking is on the right side, and we even have there's even a ramp there that we use that I said that's a handicap parking. So although the use of a handicap parking for people to come to buy used cars is probably very small, nil, nevertheless, we thought we should put one in because we're looking at the ACA.
I think the board's concern is more related to the lot itself, not where your customers are going to park.
Okay,
but
so
how you're going to manage the moving of those vehicles on a lot. And yes, maybe committing to a maximum number, and then you have to decide whether that's economically feasible for you, because I don't think what we want to see is necessarily a bunch of cars all over the place in disarray, and you're just trying to squeeze as many cars as you can, because that's what you got to do to make a living.
I think technically, he can put as many cars as he wants on there. Right? I mean, that's, I don't know.
It's up to you whether you.
No, I agree with, I say, if the applicant agrees with it, I say we do a continuance and then you guys lay out the plan, the plot plan, and like I said, give us some kind of idea how many cars you're going to put on there.
I'm willing to do that. I'm a bit stuck. I mean, I've read the ordinance. I've been through all the regulations as best as I could for the township. Right. I try to cover all the bases, even some of the bases that are not even covered, I mean, we're willing to take an adjournment and come back, and I think, what I think you're looking for is how we're going to situate the cars, and how do we have an entry and exit out of that, out of that property. If that's what if you can guide me that way, then I know what to do, because right now I'm a bit stuck. I thought, I thought we hit all the markers that we needed to.
Listen, Mr. Scott brought up something, it's up to the board, it's not really up to me,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to articulate what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no.
Melissa, your feelings on this subject?
I would like to see the applicant come back so that I could have some better information. I would like to see where the cars would be laid out. I would like to see the natural flow of traffic, where customers will fit and where the cars will be proposed. I would like to see that. I'm not upset necessarily by the use, as you said. I'm like, the use doesn't offend me. There are uses surrounding it which do. So not necessarily that the use itself is offensive, but I would like to see it. Today, I don't necessarily see it, and I wouldn't be comfortable.
Andy, your feelings? You were, okay. So what do you want a month, 2 months? What are you looking?
Next month, we should be,
Okay.
I have a few that what you want to look is an overlay of how we're
And
going to
we're not-
utilize and,
And we're not necessarily saying, we're gonna,
Approve it.
approve your application, but
understand
it will
you-
help, it should probably help your case.
Sure,
No,
sure, no, I understand that.
So,
It may be helpful if you brought someone that, some type of professional that could tell the board something about traffic safety. I'm just saying, whatever you decide to do is up to you, but you get one more bite at the apple.
I appreciate that.
all right, so I need a motion from the board for continuance for this applicant for December's zoning board meeting. I'll make a motion for a continuance. I need a second.
I'll second.
I'll call the board. Andy Guerrero.
Yes.
Melissa Rigney.
Yes.
Jim McMahon, yes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I need a second on the adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Those opposed?
I'm probably gonna send Dean Bogan or Jan out next month, because I'm getting my knee replaced
Okay,
on December 8th.
okay.
And that's the next zoning hearing.
She knows,
No, it's,
When's our next meeting?
oh, I'm sorry, it's